En vivo. Ok, saludos de ingtk. El día de hoy vamos a compartir un pequeño extracto del mensaje. El día de mañana, Greta, nuevamente al Atlántico, a borde del velero, va a comenzar a pasar por el Atlántico rumbo a otros países. Pero en esta oportunidad, si no es el Atlántico o el Pacífico, bueno, ella en diciembre contábamos que íbamos a recibir acá en Sudamérica, en Chile, ¿no? A las convenciones para lo que es el tema de ecología, a Greta. Y acerca de la información, a través del Internet tenemos información acerca de ello. Eh, bueno, ¿quién es Greta? Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg es una activista ya de Europa y aquí nos está compartiendo todo lo que ella realiza en su zona para poder llegar a conocer a todos los jóvenes para que se activen a reconocer el medio ambiente como tal. Vamos a ver.
Is not a drill. My name is Greta Thunberg. We are living in the beginning of a mass extinction. Our climate is breaking down. Children like me are giving up their education to protests. But we can still fix this. You can still fix this. To survive, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. But this alone will not be enough. Lots of solutions are talked about. But what about a solution that is right in front of us? I'll let my friend George explain.
There is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called a tree. A tree is an example of a natural climate solution. Mangroves, peat bogs, jungles, marshes, seabeds, kelp forests, swamps, coral reefs, they take carbon out of the air and lock it away. Nature is a tool we can use to repair our broken climate. These natural climate solutions could make a massive difference.
Pretty cool, right?
But only if we also leave fossil fuels in the ground.
Here's the crazy part. Right now, we are ignoring them. We spend 1,000 times more on global fossil fuel subsidies than on natural-based solutions.
Natural climate solutions get just 2% of all the money used on tackling climate breakdown.
This is your money. It is your taxes and your savings.
Even more crazy, right now when we need nature the most, we're destroying it faster than ever.
Up to 200 species are going extinct every single day.
Much of the Arctic ice is gone. Most of our wild animals have gone. Much of our soil has gone.
So what should we do?
What should you do?
It's simple. We need to protect, restore, and fund. Protect. Tropical forests are being cut down at the rate of 30 football pitches a minute.
Where nature is doing something vital, we must protect it.
Restore. Much of our planet has been damaged.
But nature can regenerate, and we can help ecosystems bounce back.
Fund.
We need to stop funding things that destroy nature and pay for things that help it.
It is that simple. Protect, restore, fund.
This can happen everywhere. Many people have already begun using natural climate solutions. We need to do it on a massive scale.
You can be part of this.
Vote for people who defend nature.
Share this video. Talk about this.
All around the world, there are amazing movements fighting for nature. Join them.
Everything counts. What you do counts.
Ok, veíamos ahí a una joven de 16 años compartiendo acerca de la importancia de la naturaleza en este medio. Hay una parte que también comparte con nosotros acerca de lo que es el mensaje. Vamos a ver.
1 minute. Ms. Thunberg, you have the floor.
My name is Greta Thunberg. I am 15 years old and I'm from Sweden. I speak on behalf of climate justice now. Many people say that Sweden is just a small country and it doesn't matter what we do. But I've learned that you are never too small to make a difference. And if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school, then imagine what we could all do together if we really wanted to. But to do that, we have to speak clearly, no matter how uncomfortable that may be. You only speak of green, eternal economic growth because you are too scared of being unpopular. You only talk about moving forward with the same bad ideas that got us into this mess, even when the only sensible thing to do is pull the emergency brake. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us children. But I don't care about being popular. I care about climate justice and a living planet. Our civilization is being sacrificed for the opportunity of a very small number of people to continue making enormous amounts of money. Our biosphere is being sacrificed so that rich people in countries like mine can live in luxury. It is the sufferings of the many which pay for the luxuries of the few. The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Until you start focusing on what needs to be done rather than what is politically possible, there is no hope. We cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. We need to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to focus on equity. And if solutions within this system are so impossible to find, then maybe we should change the system itself. We have not come here to beg world leaders to care. You have ignored us in the past, and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses, and we are running out of time. We have come here to let you know that change is coming, whether you like it or not. The real power belongs to the people. Thank you.
Como vemos, aquí en la participación de Greta está hablando claramente de que necesitamos proteger la naturaleza. Si los gobiernos determinaran una determinada utilidad a partir de los impuestos para restaurar, ¿no?, y promover salvar todo lo que es en el clima, realmente pedirían al menos un 2 o 3% de ese monto recaudado, que normalmente suelen usarlo para dañar la propia tierra. Entonces, tengamos el concepto claro de que estamos a punto de mantener el control o descontrol propio del clima. parece que se nos fuera las manos. Ella misma nombra que estamos en una casa envuelta en fuego, en llamas, y estamos a punto de perder ese hogar, ¿no? Para el futuro ella desearía ver que su generación posterior, cuando ella tenga 70 años, ver que sus nietos digan: ¿qué hiciste tú para evitar lo que está pasando ahora? ¿Qué acciones has tomado? ¿Qué tomaste en ese momento de tu juventud? Hoy en día es una forma de poder ver con los ojos claros, y creo que ustedes también tienen. Hoy en día las responsabilidades de todos suelen hacer un poco de familia y familia, pero no la comunidad, menos por la naturaleza, y eso es un punto que hay que recalcar. Bueno, vamos a compartir aquí también otro video.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Greta Thunberg et merci pour l'invitation. Thank you all for coming here, by the way. I have some good news and some bad news regarding the climate emergency. I will start with the good news. The world, as a small number of people have been saying lately, will not end in 11 years. The bad news, however, is that around the year 2030, if we continue with business as usual, we will likely be in a position where we may pass a number of tipping points, and then we might no longer be able to undo the irreversible climate breakdown. A lot of people, a lot of politicians, business leaders, journalists say they don't agree with what we're saying. They say we children are exaggerating, that we are alarmists. To answer this, I would like to refer to page 108, chapter 2, in the latest IPCC report. There you will find all our opinions summarized, because there you find our remaining carbon dioxide budget. Right there, it says that if we are to have a 67% chance of limiting the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees, we had, on January 1st, 2018, 420 gigatons of carbon dioxide left in our CO2 budget. And of course, that number is much lower today. We emit about 42 gigatons of CO2 every year. At current emissions levels, that remaining budget is gone within roughly 8.5 years. These numbers are as real as it gets. Though a great number of scientists suggest that they are too generous, these are the ones that have been accepted by all nations through the IPCC. And not once, not one single time have I heard any politician, journalist, or business leader even mention these numbers. It is almost like you don't even know they exist. As if you haven't even read the latest IPCC report on which the future of our civilization is depending. Or maybe you are simply not mature enough to tell it like it is. Because even that burden you leave to us children. We become the bad guys who have to tell people these uncomfortable things because no one else wants to or dares to. And just for quoting and acting on these numbers, these scientific facts, we receive unimaginable amounts of hate and threats. We are being mocked and lied about by elected officials, members of parliaments, business leaders, journalists.
What I really would like to ask all of those who question our so-called opinions or think that we are extreme, do you have a different budget for at least a reasonable chance of staying below the 1.5 degrees of warming limit? Is there another intergovernmental panel on climate change? Is there a secret Paris Agreement that we don't know about? One does that not include the aspect of equity? Because these are the numbers that count. This is the current best available science. You can't simply make up your own facts just because you don't like what you hear. There is no middle ground when it comes to the climate and ecological emergency. Of course, you could argue that we should go for a more risky pathway, such as the alternative of 580 gigatons CO2 from January 1st, 2018, which gives us a 50-50% chance of limiting the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees. That amount of carbon dioxide will run out in about 12 years of current business as usual. But why should we do that? Why should we accept taking that risk, leaving the future living conditions for humankind to a 50-50 flip of a coin? 420 gigatons left of CO2 to emit. And now that number is down to less than 360 gigatons. And please note that these figures are global and therefore do not say anything about the aspect of equity clearly stated throughout the Paris Agreement, which is absolutely necessary to make it work on a global scale. That means that richer countries need to get down to zero emissions faster, so that people in poorer parts of the world can heighten their standard of living by building some of the infrastructure that we have already built, such as roads, hospitals, electricity, schools, and providing clean drinking water. And because you have ignored these facts, because you and pretty much all of the media to this very minute keep ignoring them, people do not know what is going on. If you respect the science, if you understand the science, then this is it. 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit on January 1st to have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise, according to the IPCC. In the Paris Agreement, we have only signed up for staying below 1.5 to 2 degrees of temperature rise. And that, of course, gives us a bigger remaining carbon dioxide budget. But the latest IPCC report shows that aiming instead for below 1.5 degrees would significantly reduce the climate impacts, and that would most certainly save countless of human lives. This is what it's all about. This is all that we are saying. But I will also tell you this. You cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis, without seeing the full picture. You cannot leave the responsibility to individuals, politicians, the market, or other parts of the world to take. This has to include everything and everyone. Once you realize how painfully small the size of our remaining carbon dioxide budget is, once you realize how fast it is disappearing, once you realize that basically nothing is being done about it, and once you realize that almost no one is even aware of the fact that carbon dioxide budgets even exist, then tell me, what exactly do you do? And how do we do it without sounding alarmist? That is the question we must ask ourselves and the people in power. The science is clear. And all we children are doing is communicating and acting on that united science. Now political leaders in some countries are starting to talk. They are starting to declare climate emergencies and announcing dates for so-called climate neutrality. And declaring a climate emergency is good, but only setting up these vague, distant dates and saying things which give the impression of that things are being done and that action is on the way will most likely do more harm than good. Because the changes required are still nowhere in sight. Not in France, not in the EU, nowhere. And I believe that the biggest danger is not our inaction. The real danger is when companies and politicians are making it look like real action is happening, when in fact almost nothing is being done, apart from clever accounting and creative PR. The climate and ecological emergency is right here, right now. But it has only just begun. It will get worse. 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit on January 1st, 2018 to have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise. And now that figure is already down to less than 360 gigatons. At current emissions levels, that remaining budget is gone within roughly 8.5 years. In fact, since I started this speech, the world has emitted about 800,000 tons of carbon dioxide. And if anyone still has excuses not to listen, not to act, not to care, I ask you once again, is there another intergovernmental panel on climate change? Is there a secret Paris Agreement that we don't know about? One that does not include the aspect of equity? Do you have a different budget for at least a reasonable chance of staying below 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise? Some people have chosen not to come here today. Some people have chosen not to listen to us. And that is fine. We are, after all, just children. You don't have to listen to us. But you do have to listen to the united science, the scientists. And that is all we ask. Just unite behind the science. Merci.
Es la manera de poder llegar el mensaje realmente a todo el público, ¿cierto? Y el último punto acerca de las Naciones Unidas nos dijo esto.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise, the best odds given by the IPCC, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit back on January 1st, 2018. Today that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Ok, entendimos. Bueno, hay más información acerca de ella, acerca de todo esto. Tenemos uno más.
My name is Greta Thunberg, and I am a climate activist. Around the year 2030, we will be in a position where we probably set off an irreversible chain reaction beyond human control that will most likely lead to the end of our civilization as we know it. That is, unless in that time, permanent and unprecedented changes in all aspects of industrialized society have taken place, including a reduction of our CO2 emissions by at least 50%. And please note that these calculations are depending on inventions that have not yet been invented at scale. Furthermore, these scientific calculations do not include most unforeseen tipping points and feedback loops. Nor do these calculations include already locked-in warming hidden by toxic air pollution, nor the aspect of equity, which is absolutely necessary to make the Paris Agreement work on a global scale. And these calculations are not opinions or wild guesses. These projections from the IPCC are backed up by scientific facts. So, If we are to stay below the 1.5 degrees of warming limit, which is still possible within the laws of physics, we need to change almost everything. We need to start living within the planetary boundaries. This will be a drastic change for many, but not for most, because most of the world's population is already living within the planetary boundaries. It is a minority who are not. The richest 10% of the world's population emits about half of our emissions of greenhouse gases. The richest 1% emits more than the poorest 50%. And this is not about glorifying poverty. This is about the laws of physics and the remaining amount of greenhouse gases that we can still emit into the atmosphere to be in line with the Paris Agreement. It is not people in countries like Mozambique, Bangladesh, or Colombia who are the most responsible for this crisis. It is mostly down to people like you here in the audience, entrepreneurs, celebrities, politicians, business leaders, people who have a lot of power. People who consume enormous amounts of stuff, who often fly around the world, sometimes in private jets. Your individual carbon footprints are in some cases the equivalent of whole villages. But I think the worst part is that you are normalizing this extreme lifestyle because people look up to you. You are the role models. You are setting the standards. People aspire to be like you. About 100 companies emit approximately 71% of our total emissions of CO2. And yes, I know we need a system change rather than individual change, but you cannot have one without the other. If you look through history, all the big changes in society have been started by people at the grassroots level. No system change can come without pressure from large groups of individuals. And no, I don't blame you. I know you are not acting like this because you are stupid. You are not ruining the biosphere and future living conditions for all species because you are evil. At least I hope not. I know that almost every one of you are simply uninformed, just like the rest of the world's population. I know that you here in the audience didn't travel here to see a 16-year-old girl who says strange and uncomfortable things. But you know what? We need to dare to be uncomfortable. We need to be brave enough to say and do things that may not increase our profits or our popularity, because otherwise we won't stand a chance. We need to start thinking outside the box, to acknowledge that we don't have all the solutions to the climate and ecological crisis yet, unless those solutions mean that we simply stop doing certain things. We need to accept that the markets and new technologies will not solve everything for us. We need to admit our common failure, and then we need to act while there's still time. At meetings like these, you love to listen to entrepreneurs, new ideas, new inventions. But when it comes to the climate crisis, the time for those magic new inventions has just about come and gone. And even though we most certainly need to embrace every bit of new, clean technology, we can no longer look away from the obvious fact that we also need to change our behavior, and some more than others. The theme of this year's Brilliant Mind conference is flexibility quotient. It's what the organizers call a symphony of big picture thinking. Well, here is some big picture thinking for you. If you regularly fly around the world, eat meat and dairy, and are living a high carbon lifestyle, then that means you have used up countless of people's remaining carbon budgets that they will need in their everyday life for generations to come. And if that wasn't enough, those whose carbon budgets we are stealing are the ones least responsible and the ones who are going to be affected the most by this crisis. Everyone and everything needs to change, but the bigger your platform, the bigger your responsibility. The bigger your carbon footprint, the bigger your moral duty. To make the changes required, we need role models and leaders, people like you. I'm certain that most of you sitting here will have the courage, the wisdom, and the common sense to take a few steps back, to see the full picture, to make the sacrifices that are necessary, and to become the leaders we need you to be. The question is, will you do it in time? Future generations are counting on you. Don't let us down. Thank you.
Wow. Hemos comprendido de la importancia de estos mensajes. El día de mañana, nuevamente, ella, tengo entendido que va nuevamente a la mar, acerca de una noticia, si es que está aquí en internet, de Greta. No sé. Vamos a ver, vamos a poner acá, Greta. Vamos a ver si hay algo, información acerca de ello. Lo ha publicado ahora, hace un instante. A ver, vamos a ver. Aquí está. Vamos a traducir esta parte y lo vamos a compartir, a ver, el mensaje, para que conozcan ustedes acerca del mensaje que realmente ha publicado en el Facebook. Dice así, vamos a ver.
Me alegra decir que espero llegar a la 25 pesos colombianos en Madrid. Me ofrecieron un viaje desde Virginia, Estados Unidos, en el catamarán de vela francés de 48 pies La Vagabonde. Los dos australianos Riley William, Elaina Caruso y Nicky Henderson de Inglaterra me llevarán a través del Océano Atlántico. Navegamos hacia Europa mañana por la mañana.
Wow. Voy a mostrarte el mensaje cuando Greta se acercó antes de venir a América y nos mostró esto.
Esta es Greta, la Greta famosa, vino especialmente para conocerte y hablar en el Senado italiano, que como sabrás es una estrella mundial, millones y millones de seguidores, invitando y movilizando contra el cambio climático. Sí, felicito. And would you like to say anything to Pope Francis?
Yes, thank you for standing up for climate, speaking the truth, and really, it means a lot.
God bless you. Continue to walk, eh? Continue, eh?
Y Francisco, acá estamos hablando, Greta, le encantaría hacer una foto juntos, estamos hablando con tu secretario, gigantesca a nivel mundial.
Están sacando
Sí.
la foto ya.
¿Te parece que podrán posar juntos?
Están sacando la foto.
Dale,
De esta manera natural, queda mejor.
dale. ¿Quieres tenerlo tú? Así que esa es la foto.
Que Dios te bendiga. God bless you. Un beso mío.
Este es el papá de Greta.
Ok, vieron que el papá de Greta ya se acercó al papa, ¿no? Antes de venir y ahora nuevamente el papa va a orar por Greta, por el viaje de mañana. Wow. Vamos a ver. ¿Recuerdan cómo llegó? A través del catamarán. Nuevamente surcará las aguas del Atlántico para llegar a España. Dios lo cuide. Greta nuevamente viaja a Europa, retornando en el catamarán.
We're currently doing between 20 and 25 knots. Last night we hit 30 knots. It's very rough but very high waves.
Recuerdo ese recorrido. Muchas noches. 15 días. Llegó un miércoles y ahora zarpa un miércoles.
We have produced all electric energy on board by solar and wind and not used any fossil fuel for this trip.
Very grateful for Team Alicia and everyone else who has been making this trip possible.
So proud of you, Greta.
Because you're saving the earth.
Thank you so much.
These are roses for you.
Congratulations, Greta! 20 and 25 knots. Last night we hit 30 knots. It's very rough and very high waves.
We have produced all electric energy on board by solar and wind and not used any fossil fuel for this trip.
Very grateful for Team Malizia and everyone else who has been making this trip possible.
So proud of you, Greta.
Because you're saving the earth.
Thank you so much.
These are roses for you. Congratulations, Greta.
Gracias, 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 Greta. Está haciendo posible todo este esperanza de una nueva generación. Gracias. Un abrazo para todos los seguidores y los suscriptores del grupo de Greta, que tenemos un gran mensaje acerca de ello a través del internet. Y lo vamos a compartir a través de este medio y lo vamos a dar a conocer para que puedan todos tener alcance de la información acerca de lo que hay dentro de este grupo, de poder ayudar y compartir esa información a nivel mundial y más jóvenes se unan a través de Fridays for Future y a través de Climate Now, Action Now, utilizando también a través de las redes, compartiendo este mensaje. La familia de Greta también junto con ella y deseándole todo lo mejor, todo lo positivo para que puedan llegar en buen estado con el grupo que vamos a compartir a través de este viaje. Bueno, esto es lo que tenemos de información acerca de Greta, por eso mucha gente está sorprendida, está viendo recién el mensaje, están viendo, ¿no?, la información y todo lo demás. Fridays for Future también sigue compartiendo más información. Veamos. En todos los lugares están haciendo y en la información están compartiendo, ¿no? Gracias a ello está la posibilidad de todo ello. Son cientos de miles. Wow. Esto sin duda es algo muy importante. Vean la cantidad de gente. Todos, ¿no? A beautiful sight. A million people in the street of Santiago. My throw are with the people of Chile, horrific fall and recent days development. Bueno, este es Chile. Ella está preocupada por el tema de lo que está sucediendo. Ella está invitada también en Chile para poder hablar del tema climático, pero ella se alegra de toda la gente que esté unida en este motivo. Entonces, hay otro, Friday for Future, Climate Strike, también es un grupo que está compartiendo. Aquí también se hablaba acerca de una noticia, acerca de los fuegos que están viendo, creo que también en diferentes lugares de Australia, creo, y el clima está muy enfurecido, digamos. Acá está la información que acabo de ver, la importancia de la, de la naturaleza, y también está mostrando pues todo lo que está sucediendo. Ella le llaman la guardiana y lo estamos compartiendo a través de este medio, ¿no? Todo lo que es el ánimo de proteger lo más...
This land is on fire. You can feel the heat.
I think this is something that is very dangerous.
You think humans started this?
Yes, of course, I think human.
The enemy, the orangutan, is land clearing for palm oil.
The rainforests in Indonesia are burning. Firefighters have been battling this blaze for weeks. And at its peak this summer, the government says there were thousands of similar fires all across Borneo and Sumatra. This is how you get to the forest fire in Borneo. By river, on one of these little riverboat canoes. Those guys in orange, they're firefighters. And this is how they commute to the fire. Well, we've reached the firefighting camp. And our team are unloading their canoe.
Saludos para mi amigo Benny también, que está compartiendo información acerca de este medio. Lo estamos viendo a través de la acción de que está pasando en otros países, en Indonesia, en Australia, acerca del clima. Es extenso este tema, pero nosotros tenemos que estar preparados para todo ello, porque es de mucha importancia comunicarlo, saber. El día de mañana Greta nuevamente regresa a España a través del velero, ¿no? Nos comentaba y hemos mostrado que todas las diferencias, las dificultades que hemos pasado. El 8 de noviembre sucedió esto.
Excuse me, I'm running the live stream for this action. Hi.
Ahí veíamos la información acerca de cómo necesitamos restaurar, sembrar árboles en lugar donde está todo quemado, volver a empezar. Eso es importantísimo. Vamos a compartirlo, vamos a ponerle me gusta. Y en los otros lugares de Europa también se están reuniendo para estar presentes en este tipo de aclamaciones. También.
What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want? What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we?
Excelente. Necesitamos dar a conocer en serio el trabajo de todos los jóvenes por el tema de del clima. Ahora, ¿qué queremos? Acción por el clima. ¿Cuándo? Ahora. Al parecer, los niños ya tienen claro cuál es el camino que deben seguir de manifestar la importancia de la preservación del clima y del medio ambiente. Entonces tenemos aquí nuevamente a la costa del Atlántico. Ella había llegado hasta el Pacífico, nuevamente regresa al Atlántico y mostrando que está preparándose para poder regresar a través del catamarán. El día de mañana temprano, miércoles, sale y oramos por su viaje. Bueno, dice 11.000 científicos recientemente han declarado que el clima de emergencia y tienen que tomar a través de los medios de acción y atención sobre esto. Y más científicos se unen sobre esto acerca de la crisis, que es sumamente importante. Esta información está dentro de su página de Greta Thunberg, dentro de su Facebook, y aquí estamos compartiendo también acerca de ello. La BBC también está compartiendo acerca de los otros lugares que también están mostrando. Aquí está sucediendo algo del tema del clima en otros países como Australia. Es un fenómeno muy complicado. Escuchemos aquí esta entrevista.
I am so excited right now. At just 16 years old, our next guest is already changing the world. Look at her.
¿La conocen?
Humanity is now standing at a crossroads. We must now decide which path we want to take.
A teenager from Sweden called the Voice of the Planet leads a global youth movement and has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
We are in the midst of the sixth mass extinction. Our house is falling apart. Our leaders need to start acting accordingly.
Her actions started with a solitary strike outside Sweden's parliament last year.
And now, look at what her movement has become.
Students and workers all around the world are flooding the streets demanding action on climate change.
1.4 million kids across dozens of countries joined her in the streets.
But it's looking like this will be the largest climate protest in our planet's history.
Now she's taking her message to the other side of the Atlantic.
Greta Thunberg has completed her sailboat trip to attend a United Nations Global Warming Conference.
Thunberg refused to fly here because of the carbon footprint of traveling by plane.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Greta Thunberg is taking on climate change head on, pulling no punches.
She delivered a scathing speech.
She fiercely criticized leaders for their inaction on combating climate change.
You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal.
By scolding the rich and powerful, she made such waves. A prominent conservative in Britain tweeted, "Freak yachting accidents do happen in August."
And now she's on the president's radar as well. Overnight, the president seeming to mock this teenage activist with a sarcastic tweet.
And if you belong to that small group of people who feel threatened by us, then we have some very bad news for you. Because this is only the beginning.
Please welcome Greta Thunberg. First of all, thank you. I guess everyone who meets you says thank you, because what you're doing, it's the loudest voice, and it's getting so much attention, and we need this, because we haven't obviously done enough. So I want to start with thank you. And then, does this just get overwhelming, because you're just doing so much at your age? This is a lot of energy.
Yes, it is a lot. It is a lot to take in. It is a lot for a teenager.
Yeah, it's a lot. And you're traveling around the world, and you're speaking in front of so many people. We've been trying to get you for 2 months. It took you to get, you had to like take a boat, and then you were in New York, and then you had to take a train, and so it took a while to get you here, but thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, I mean, I, like so many people, are fascinated that you started learning about climate change at what age?
I think it was age 7, 8, 9 in school. I learned the basics, like the planet was warming because of increased greenhouse gases, and then I just couldn't believe it, because I thought if this was really true, then surely someone must have done something. Then surely we would take it seriously. But no one took it seriously, and so I started to read about it. And of course, the more I read about it, the more I understood. And once I fully understood it, I couldn't just look away anymore.
Right, but there's a lot of people, you could say that for a lot of young people and adults, but people just get on with their lives, and they don't go after it the way you have. And you started with one small gesture. You just sat down on the street and put a sign out, and now over 11 million people, because of you, have been striking because of this. 11 million people. I mean, I guess it shows you what one voice can do, right? It shows you the power that you have.
Yes, it really does. And I would never have expected that something like that would happen. I mean, I just thought that I need to do whatever I can do, and it's obviously not going to be enough, but at least it's something. And I needed to just for myself make sure that I did whatever I could, so that I could look myself in the eye in this crisis.
Well, it's the way you speak, I think. It's where you're coming from. It's how you come across, and your energy, and you're so real and raw, and I think that's probably why. We're going to take a break, and we're going to talk about what everyone else can do so they can look themselves in the eye, and we can all try to turn this thing around, because we're running out of time. So we'll be right back. You obviously have a lot of supporters. You have a lot of people who are walking and fighting with you, but then you get a tweet from the president who basically was not a kind tweet. Do you ever think about, would you sit down with him to try to help him understand climate change?
I don't understand why I would do that. I mean, I don't see what I could tell him that he hasn't already heard.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be a waste of time, really.
Yeah. And you have said, and I love that you say this. You say that your Asperger's is a gift. That you think you look at it as a gift, and I think it is a gift. But explain why you say that.
I mean, in this society, everyone is the same. Everyone thinks the same, and then I think it is a gift to be different, to have some kind of, if you are on the autism spectrum, that makes you different. And especially in a crisis like this, we need to think outside the box. We need people who think differently. And that means that people who work differently can be a good resource for that. And
yep. What have you done? What have you done to change your life? Like you said, you do things that you can do to look yourself in the eye and know you've done enough. What have you done?
I have stopped flying, and I have gone vegan. I have a shop stop. It means you don't buy new things unless you absolutely have to. And just things like that, but especially I'm trying to communicate what is happening and try to put pressure on people in power. And
all right, so here's what we're doing. We're going to do something, because your voice is, I just have been wanting to meet you for so long. I think you're so amazing. So we're creating a section on EllenTube, and we're dedicating it to you. So we'll have information and resources to help educate people on climate change. You can learn how to reduce your carbon footprint, see what you can do to make a difference. We'll also have information on how to join Greta's climate strikes. As she posts new information, We'll share it on that page. We're committing $100,000 into promoting that web page to help
Wow.
our message get across. All right? And Greta's book, No One is Too Small to Make a Difference, is out now, and you're all going to go home with a copy. We'll be right back.
Ok, esto hemos llegado hasta la parte final, más de una hora. Hablamos de Greta y el día de mañana les deseamos todo el éxito al empezar su viaje. Por favor, todos tengamos en presente. Mañana vamos a hacer una transmisión en vivo durante la mañana. Vamos a lograr también dentro de la información de este tema, ¿no? Y vamos a comunicar también a los alumnos y a los niños de la importancia de la ecología, del medio ambiente también, y el qué es lo que está pasando en nuestro alrededor y qué es lo que podemos nosotros realizar, conocer, hacer para poder cambiar toda esta situación a algo positivo. Por favor, coméntenlo y compártanlo también. Estamos desde YouTube. Después de tiempo nos estamos compartiendo nuevamente y poco a poco con los demás amigos en la suscripción le vamos a enviar también material de actualización acerca de ello. Mañana estamos con Greta. Ya, un saludo desde aquí de ingtk, Lima, Perú. Buen viaje a España a través del velero. Gracias, nos vemos. Nos vemos, chao.